anything about saving worlds. But you do.
Trust me, kid, I'm no hero. You were an X-Man. You were the X-Man. I am soaking wet right now.
Boys are so silly.
This is what I'm talking about. Big, slow-motion action sequence. Who knows if you live or die? Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the PC Boys Podcast. I am your host, Logan Locke. So today, we are here finally with the Deadpool and Wolverine review. So, obviously how I do my reviews, we start off with no spoilers, we go into spoilers, and then I give my ranking out of 10, okay? So, let's start off with the no spoilers of this movie. This movie is a fun time, okay? If you're a Deadpool fan, you're a Wolverine fan, prior X-Men fan, or Marvel movies in general, this movie is going to be a good time for you, okay? It is very much rated R, blood, gore, cursing, the whole 9 yards. No sexual stuff, though, which was really nice to see for a change. But it was a very good movie. And I have to say, the action in this movie and the comedy were pretty good. I will say, though, the comedy did feel a little bit off to me, especially compared to the other Deadpool movies. I think that the comedy could have been 10 times better in this movie than it was. But it was pretty good. It was pretty serviceable. It's just, I think that there were moments where they overused some jokes or punchlines, and I think for me that kind of made it decrease a little bit in terms of my thoughts on the whole thing. However, though, the movie was phenomenal in the regards to fun. My major critiques with the movie is story and the villain. The villain of this movie is very powerful. Cassandra Nova, very powerful villain, but not utilized in any physical sense. Like, she's not really physically doing much. She could easily, put Deadpool, Wolverine in their place, but they don't utilize her in a physical aspect, which in and of itself creates, kind of an issue for me, because it's like, if you're going to have a villain of the movie, they need to, actually be there to not only talk, but to be a physical menace. And while she's super powerful, and there are moments where like, oh wow, she could screw up everybody here, they don't utilize her like that. And in my opinion, I think that was very, very underutilized when it comes to her character. And then the story is just kind of all over the place. And because this movie is filled with so many cameos, quite a few action scenes in it, and comedy laughs, I think that the story just kind of took a backseat in this movie. And that's really unfortunate, because as much fun as I had with this movie, and I recommend people go to the theaters and watch this because it was a great time, it was a fun time, it's just, as a critic and as somebody that does like good written stories, it doesn't really have that. And that's my major gripe with it, is the plot. I will go over that once we get to the spoiler section in just a moment. But yeah, so overall, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a fun time. I would easily give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. Very, very similar with Twisters, actually, funny enough. No, this is not the best Marvel movie you will ever see. And I even think that it's not even the best Deadpool movie. I think that the first one is much better than this. But this was a very, very good movie, and I think it's much better than Deadpool 2. But yeah, ultimately, when it comes to this film, I'm a little bit disappointed. Just when it comes to the story and the villain, mainly. But outside of that, the movie was really, really good. Now, for everybody that's here for the spoilers, let's get right into that. Remember, you have been warned, spoilers all ahead. So this movie's premise is basically, we figure out that Logan, from the movie Logan, So basically, X-Men 1, 2, 3, and Logan is the same Wolverine, and that when Logan died in Logan, that he was this thing called an anchor being for the Fox-Men universe, okay? And Deadpool is in the same timeline as Logan and the OG X-Men movies. Same timeline. And because Logan died, his universe is slowly dying, okay? But it takes like 2,000 years. Now, because his universe is dying, at the TVA, they deemed this Deadpool as an important asset to the main MCU timeline, aka Earth 616, or the MCU that we've been watching from Iron Man 1 all the way up to now. So they rescue Deadpool, and Paradox, who is basically Mobius, but like a bad guy, basically says to Deadpool that instead of your world dying in 2,000 years, I'm going to kill it off really quickly with this machine that I'm building. But my superiors want you. So what Deadpool does, he gets a brand new suit before he's told this, and he takes the TVA multiversal traveling device from Paradox after breaking his nose, and he goes throughout the multiverse looking for a Wolverine to replace his. And we go through a Wolverine montage, and there's a lot of Wolverines that we see. We see Age of Apocalypse Wolverine. I think that might have been the first one he jumped to, who looked amazing. We see comic accurate Wolverine, so it's basically Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, but he's like 5'4", like his comic counterpart. We see Henry Cavill as a Wolverine very briefly, which was something I was teased about. We also see Patch very briefly, who is Wolverine, but he has an eye patch and he wears like a white jacket and a white suit. And then after jumping through these, and then I think the last major Wolverine that they showed was the Wolverine in the yellow and brown suit that fought the Hulk, and the Hulk had a slight little cameo in there for a few moments before Deadpool got smacked into a different universe. And Deadpool ends up finding the Wolverine that he chooses, and this Wolverine wears the classic yellow and blue suit underneath him. So he brings him back to the TVA, and Paradox basically says, even if you did find any Wolverine, I would have rejected you, but you decided to choose the absolute worst Wolverine. So Paradox ends up sending Deadpool and Wolverine to the Void using one of those prune sticks that was in the Loki series. And once they get there, this is where Wolverine and Deadpool have like the first major fight scene, and it was choreographed very well. It was done very well. But essentially the plot of this movie is once they're in the Void, we need to get out of the Void so we can get back to my universe, destroy Paradox's machine, and save it. And that's like the whole plot of the movie. But then they're interrupted by Cassandra Nova's band of misfits out in the wasteland. And this is where we see Sabretooth, played by Tyler Mane from the original X-Men. We also see Toad and a few others, as well as Chris Evans playing Johnny Storm. And this Johnny Storm is not family-friendly at all. He is saying some wild shit. And so we get to see all these characters. We see Wolverine versus Sabretooth rematch that lasts literally like 1 second because Wolverine just chops his head off in one slice. But we do get a few words from Tyler Mane's. Sabretooth saying, I know you, are you ready to die, before he dies. So he actually got to speak, unlike he did in the original X-Men movie. But that was really nice, that we got to see. And from here, they get taken to Cassandra Nova's lair. Deadpool basically rats out, Johnny Storm for saying a bunch of shit. Cassandra Nova rips off his skin really quickly with a snap of her fingers. Calls in Eliath to basically take care of him and Wolverine after they have a little bit of a fight with her. And then they end up getting away using like a rocket foot. And then they end up going to a diner, talk to each other for a little bit, cracking some jokes and stuff. And they end up getting found by Nicepool and Dogpool. And Nicepool is played by Ryan Reynolds, except like he doesn't have like the, facial scars or anything like that. And he gives them, what the fuck was it? Was it a Honda Odyssey or something like that to travel to the Resistance base with? And basically, so they go on this little road trip. And Deadpool loves, Dogpool, but he has to give him back to Nicepool and stuff like that. And eventually through the trip, Deadpool lets it slip that Wolverine's world might be able to be saved by the TVA, even though he promised Wolverine that the TVA would save his world. So they get into the second fight, which was pretty awesome, in the van, and it was really funny. And by the end of it, X-23, which was revealed in the most recent trailer, ends up bringing them to the Resistance base. And this is where we get a fuck ton of cameos. We get Jennifer Gardner's Elektra, which was very, heavily rumored way early on to be in this movie. So she makes an appearance. Blade by Wesley fucking Snipes appears. That was one of the best cameos for me. Channing Tatum shows up as Gambit. And the only people that this will be like a big deal to is the people that knew that they wanted Channing Tatum a part of X-Men Last Stand, I believe, way back as Gambit. But they never, with, schedule conflicts and stuff like that, they could actually never get it to work. So he appears here in the Gambit suit, comic-accurate suit, which looks a little goofy, but it's fine with me. And he has, a terrible Cajun accent, which they just make jokes on. And X-23, of course, comes out as well. And we get to see her. Her and Logan have this little bit of a heartfelt moment where she basically explains that her version of Logan saved her and a bunch of kids. And this is supposed to be the same X-23 from Logan, which is weird how she got to the Void. They never explain why she's in the Void if, she's a part of Deadpool's universe. It just makes no sense to me. But anyways, so they all get into the car. They raid Cassandra Nova's base, basically having the plan of taking Juggernaut's helmet, putting it on Cassandra Nova so they can kill her. And she can't use her powers because they're blocked. And a big fight ensues where, Gambit, in my opinion, has the absolute best parts of the fight scene. Blade gets a few good shots in there. To be honest with you, X-23 didn't get any, really good action shots outside of, her versus Juggernaut and taking out his Achilles heels. But outside of that, she didn't really have any of the best action sequences. Even Elektra didn't have any of, really, really good action sequences. But I was just, happy to have them all there. And they eventually get to Cassandra Nova, and Cassandra Nova, fucks him up a little bit, gets into Wolverine's mind, and they tell you what happened to this Wolverine, where, he went out for a bar, was doing the loner thing, and the humans came and killed all of his X-Men, and he couldn't do anything about it, so he feels this guilt. And it really sucks the way that they did that, because that would have been more effective to see the dead X-Men, or to see everything happen, to understand this Wolverine's pain, but it's more of a, we're going to tell you, but we're not going to show you situation, which I freaking hate when they do that in movies. So that could have been done a lot better. But anyways, they end up being able to get the helmet on her, and she's dying, gets shot by Pyro. Then Pyro gets knocked out by, I think, Deadpool. Maybe it was Wolverine. But basically Wolverine takes the helmet off her, choosing to do the Charles Xavier thing, having a heart-to-heart with Cassandra. And she ends up using a Doctor Strange sling ring, which he mentions a Doctor Strange that even Deadpool acknowledges. And this sling ring has the space and time stone on it, and she opens it back to Deadpool's world. So Deadpool gets back to his world, but Paradox is there with his machine to destroy that universe, and Cassandra ends up finding out from Pyro that essentially she is been betrayed by Paradox, because essentially Paradox and her made a deal where if she stays in the Void, that, he'll basically give her whatever she needs there to rule over like a god there. And yeah, so the TVA make that deal with her, and Paradox breaks that rule and basically is oh, well, I'm gonna go ruin a bunch of multiverses and stuff, and I'm gonna have her get killed or whatever. And so she now is well, now I want to go on a revenge tour. So she ends up going to Deadpool's universe. And this is when the Deadpool Corps gets brought in. So she brings the Deadpool Corps to basically fight Wolverine and Deadpool, while she's dealing with Paradox with the machine, because she wants to destroy all universes. So they go to the Void, where she can rule over everybody with an iron fist. And so that happens. But the Deadpool Corps comes through. You have Blake Lively, who plays Lady Deadpool. You get Cowboy Pool, Kid Pool. You get a bunch of Deadpool variants here. Samurai Pool. And so you have Deadpool and Wolverine that end up fighting them. But before that happens, Nice Pool ends up being used as a human shield by, Deadpool Prime, aka, the Deadpool you've been following for the past 3 movies. And this Deadpool does not have the power of regeneration, and he ends up dying. And Deadpool ends up getting Dog Pool. He ends up taking Nice Pool's golden Desert Eagles. And so, yeah, him and Wolverine end up fighting the Deadpool Corps. Wolverine puts on his fucking cowl, and I was so excited when I saw that in the theaters. I was freaking out. The cowl looked good. There were some scenes where it looked off because, the cowl is real. It's a physical cowl they used on set, but they had to CGI it in some scenes to do, the animated eyes thing. So it looked a little weird in some scenes, but when the cowl was just, normal, practical cowl, it looked great. So then they fight the Deadpool Corps. And the Deadpool Corps, get dispatched relatively easily. Stan Lee makes a little cameo on the bus on a billboard. And then the Deadpool Corps, after they get through them, fighting them, they get back up because of obviously self-regeneration and stuff. Then Peter shows up in the old Deadpool suit from the Fox timeline with a big bulge for some reason in his pants. And all the Deadpools have a Peter in their universe, so they go over to Peter and they're all, hanging out with him. So Deadpool and Wolverine go down to the machine to stop it. And Cassandra's, on it, going through the motion of destroying the universes. And basically Paradox explains that in order to destroy it, you would have to, go and connect yourself with the machine to reverse its polarity or some stupid science nonsense. And, it'll rip you apart and atomize you. And it's painful. And Deadpool and Wolverine have this heart-to-heart, figuring out who's going to do it. Wolverine's I should do it. You have a family to go back to and stuff. I have nothing. But then Deadpool, punches him and throws him back and goes in. And then Wolverine ends up breaking through as the timeline is collapsing. And Wolverine and him combine together and are both attached to the machine. And it rips off Hugh Jackman's shirt, which is kind of funny, and there's a big joke made on the sex appeal of Hugh Jackman and, being 50 years old and still being shredded beyond belief. But so they stop Cassandra Nova's plan. Cassandra Nova gets destroyed by the machine. Paradox ends up getting arrested. Then you get a Loki cameo from, oh gosh, what's her name? I think it was B something, but from the Loki series, the African-American girl that plays one of the TVA agents. She is in this movie. She ends up liking Peter's bulge, I guess, and has a flirty conversation with him. But Paradox gets arrested. Deadpool and Wolverine have a little heart-to-heart. They eat some shawarma after everything, and the movie basically ends where everybody's at the dinner table, all of the old Fox X-Men from Deadpool's universe, Colossus, Yukio, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Peter, Shatterstar, Vanessa, Dopinder, Blind Al, and joined by them, of course, is Logan's Wolverine and Daphne Keene's X-23, which I loved that those two were together at the end of the movie like family, because at the end of Logan, it was really depressing. But it was a very solid movie. And I liked it. Like I said, it was a very solid movie. The cameos were good. The action was great. The comedy was good. But the fucking story. Let me tell you why the story sucks, okay? First of all, basically Deadpool does all this to make Vanessa like him again. To give him purpose, to seem like he's fighting for something other than himself. That's the whole motivation for him to do this and save his world. Well, I mean, saving his world on top of that, but Vanessa not being with him was the initial starting point to that, because in the beginning of the movie, he went to Avengers, campus or whatever, was interviewed by Happy Hogan in the main MCU timeline to be an Avenger, and basically he's you don't become an Avenger because you need it, you become an Avenger because everybody else needs you, and in this movie, Deadpool learns that lesson. There's also, a point in the movie where they're oh, what's this scene with me and Thor's arms and stuff, and then Paradox is no, that's in the distant future, you shouldn't be seeing that, and they kind of set up a Deadpool purpose in the upcoming Avengers movies, which is really interesting. So I think that is going to play a role in the future for sure. And then, but yeah, on top of that, this plot is just all this, because it's about getting to the next fight scene, getting to the next cameo. So, Cassandra Nova doesn't really have much to do. Okay, she rules over the void with an iron fist. She can literally kill whoever she wants with no problem whenever she wants. So therefore, she doesn't do much in this movie. And There's not much character development for her either. And like I said, the plot is basically Deadpool wants to become purposeful and join a team, and then he gets to the TVA, and they say, well, we're going to destroy your world. Your world's dying because Logan died. Deadpool goes on a journey to find Logan. He does. They get sucked into the void. They need to get out of the void to destroy Paradox's machine and save his universe. And it's basically basic plot synopsis or MacGuffin device to get to the fight scenes, to get to the cameos, to get to the big aha nodding moments. And it's not the best. It's not like you have a villain that's integral to the story. Cassandra's villain being there is just kind of like, well, we need somebody to be in this movie, so I'll just put Cassandra Nova in there. You know? And that's kind of what this movie felt like when it came to her and the plot. It was like the plot and the villain of this movie are just there just to be there. There's no real good reason why they're there. They're just there for whatever reason. And that's my major gripe with the movie. If this movie had a great plot and a good villain that really integrally was interwoven to the plot, then this movie could have easily been an 8 or a 9. But because it's just fan service, the movie, it gets a 7.5. It's entertaining. It's not a waste of money. It's definitely good eye candy if you love violence, action, all that stuff. Like, you'll get all that here. You'll get all, like, the comic references and stuff like that. All that's here. But it is not a good story. And it doesn't have a great villain. And that's the biggest issues with the movie. So yeah, if you're here to see Deadpool and Wolverine slice and dice and kick some ass, you'll have a good time. You're here for comedy, you'll have a good time. There's some big plot points in here that will transfer over into the MCU going forward. But the story, it's just kind of a vehicle just to get to the next action sequence. Nothing too crazy, to be honest with you, plot-wise. Is this one of my favorite Marvel movies? No. It's a mid-tier Marvel movie for me. And that's my honest opinion. It's not a bad movie. It's a very serviceable movie. It's in the mid-tier movies for me. But it's not a top movie. To be a top movie, you need to be more than entertaining. You need a good story. You need a good villain. To be a top tier movie, you need to have that. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be in top tier for me. Spider-Man No Way Home is another great example. For those of you that think I'm just hating on the MCU, let me take my favorite superhero of all time. Okay? Spider-Man. No Way Home was a fun movie. A very fun movie. Okay? Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. The Spider-Man I grew up on, right? All of those old villains, Willem Dafoe and all that returning. Everything you could want as a Spider-Man fan. Even get Daredevil in there for a quick second. But you know what the issue was? That movie was fan service the movie. Just like this movie. Now, I will say, No Way Home's plot compared to this movie is more streamlined than this movie. Okay, multiverse villains coming in because of a spell going wrong, and they have to get back to their universe because, you know, it'll cause a ripple in time and space for them to be here. And it gives Peter character growth by trying to save these villains. And this movie, by the end, puts Peter in a situation that will lead us to a more Spider-Man-centric story that we've all been wanting. Spider-Man No Way Home did things in its plot of fan service that actually affects his character. This movie doesn't. Deadpool loves his family. That we knew that in Deadpool 2. It didn't really further his character. And the Wolverine in this movie, he had heartfelt moments, but we didn't get to see what happened to him, which really could have elevated the story point of this Wolverine has been through some shit. And they didn't do it. So I think that's the main difference between why No Way Home's better than this movie, is just simply because both are fan service the movie. Like, they give you everything fan service for Deadpool, Wolverine, the X-Men, or in Spider-Man's case, Spider-Man, that you could possibly want. Old characters and cameos and stuff like that. Like, they give you everything you could want. But the main difference is, with Spider-Man's story, it actually developed Peter Parker in the MCU. This movie didn't really develop this Wolverine or Deadpool, really. Deadpool in this movie is kind of a dick and joking a lot. He cares about his family. But we've seen that already in the prior 2 movies. Especially in Deadpool 2. So he didn't really feel like Deadpool to me in this movie does not feel like he actually had character development. Wolverine had a little. He went from being a dick, completely brooding, and hating everything, to being like, I wear the suit for my fallen X-Men, even though they didn't show us that, which would have made it 10 times better and more relatable. They just didn't. And he's like, I'm going to do the right thing, because Charles would have done the right thing in terms of Cassandra, despite what he wanted to do. And at the end of the movie, he was ready to sacrifice himself and let Wade be with his family, despite how much Wade bothered him this whole movie. Wolverine had character development in this movie, but it was not done the best way possible. If they showed what happened to this Wolverine and actually had us witness the death of those X-Men or the aftermath and him seeing those X-Men dead, I think that this movie could have been a lot more heartfelt in terms of Wolverine's character development. But for Deadpool, he doesn't feel like his character developed. To me, it doesn't feel like this Deadpool character had any development whatsoever. He was just kind of there for comic relief. But yeah, I would say X-23 even had some good character development in this movie. Seeing Logan again, but not her Logan, and kind of having to be in this recollection of like, I know you're not my Logan, but you are a hero, you are a good guy. And it hurt to watch that, because like, you know, I love X-23. I love what Daphne Keane did in Logan. And now to watch her in this, it's like, oh, that's gotta be gut-wrenching to actually witness, you know, if I was actually her character, right? And I was in that situation. Where, like, you see your father, but it's not your dad at the same time. It's a completely different version of that person from a different universe. But yeah, the movie was good. The movie's fun. But all I'm saying is if you're looking for like a great plot and villain here, no, you're not going to get that with this movie. You'll get a good time, you'll get a lot of good cameos, good action sequences, good comedy, but you're not going to get a great plot. You're not going to get a great villain. And that's ultimately the only thing that holds this movie back for me. And like I said, I give No Way Home a lot of shit. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, so I naturally give, you know, Spider-Man a lot of shit all the time in the MCU and how they've written him. But even I have to say, they actually, you know, moved Spider-Man along as a character with the events of No Way Home and what was done in that movie, even though it was fan service the movie. With this one, this version of Wolverine had character development, which they kind of needed to do because it's a new version of Wolverine that we've never seen before. But for Deadpool, he just kind of feels like he's in the same spot he started the movie, for me personally. But yeah, final verdict, as I said earlier, 7.5, good movie, could have been better. Definitely go out to watch it in theaters if you're excited. But that is all I have to say. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next one.